everybody, this is Bill Varney with your Thursday, May 22nd Surf Fishing Report, brought to you by FishToSurf.com and your saltwater guide. So good surf fishing, of course, continues, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that we had a little bit of a turnover last week of water temperature with the wind that came roaring right back, and sure did surf fishing too. So let's start up in Santa Barbara and let's talk about what's happening up there first. Once again, we had a bit of a turnover and a slowdown last week in Santa Barbara, but that water cleared up and things picked up right away as the temperature came right back up to about 60 degrees in Santa Barbara. Hard to believe, but 60 degrees in Santa Barbara with the salt water at the beach, and 67-ish degrees, 68 degrees, all the way down in San Diego with the ocean temperature too. It's amazing that the water is so warm. We'll have to keep our eye on this for sure. So Santa Barbara, as I said, slowed down a little bit with these higher winds this week, but what anglers discovered is really between kind of that Tahiguas area and all the way up to Gaviota, there has been a big ball of sardine in that area, and that has had a tendency to bring fish closer to shore, so we really need to keep our eye on that. Really, the big news up in Santa Barbara this week was smaller perch for sure. A few of those 13, 14 inches still caught, but I think a lot of these barred perch, of course, have spawned now. They've gone back into hiding for the summer where they're just coming out to feed now and then. Otherwise, there's going to be tons of these smaller perch along the beach, and that's a really good sign for spring and the beginning of summer. The other thing is halibut fishing has been good up in the Santa Barbara area at some of the traditional spots on both Lucky Crafts and Battle Stars. So really that stretch from about Campus Point down to Moore Mesa, that area has been good. It's been good around the wharf area, and then it's also been good around Graveyards, that area that we always talk about that's just south of East Beach there. That all three of those areas have been producing both sublegals and several legals this week, so keep your eye on that. That will do probably nothing but get better. There hasn't been any corbina that we've heard of caught up in Santa Barbara, but they've been seen both at Goleta in the water and down at Carpinteria, really within just a few days. I think as that water temperature continues to warm up, we're going to see soft shell sand crabs on those beaches and that many more corbina feeding. So really good fishing up in that area continues to get good, and as we have this series of south swells, which we're going to see 3 more of those over the next 10 days or so, that will continue to push that warm water north. Looking really good in Santa Barbara. As we make our way down to Ventura, Ventura has just been crazy good corbina fishing. There has been quite a few corbina caught in the last week in that area, over 22 inches, and anglers have been using things like bloodworms, some grubs, and soft shell sand crabs, of course. All three of those have been working in the surf, and really there's been no particular area that's really good for corbina fishing. It has really been spread out all along the Ventura coast. So really from about C Street all the way down to the Santa Clara River mouth has been good for corbina. They've been in that entire stretch along there, and it's because we have a lot of sand crabs there for sure. There have been some below that, so the Oxnard Shores area and Hollywood Beach and so forth, but the water was a bit turned over and dirty there last week. Not as good fishing conditions, and a lot of guys moved a little bit north from there. Look for that to clean up, and that entire stretch, it's too bad you can't fish all the way through Point Wainimi all the way down to Magoo, because that entire stretch will have corbina filling in there over the next couple of weeks, and really hungry, some really hungry fish. So look for that in Ventura. That continues to be good. And along that same coast area, there's been a lot of small perch and quite a few yellowfin croaker there. Not any real big fish that we've heard about, but some really good numbers. So in between those corbina, some great fishing for those fish. And then of course, with this Runyon Run coming in on Monday, I would also suspect, just like in Santa Barbara, down in Ventura, we're going to see the possibility of maybe some sea bass in the surf, some striper in the surf, and of course it's going to bring those halibut, especially the big ones, closer to shore. So look forward to that. Ventura has been very good. I think it'll continue to be good as those corbina spread out along the coast. And then when we make our way down to Malibu, I was so excited to receive a report from Malibu. right from the Palisades area. The first information I got was that the water has cleaned up substantially in that area. It's open for fishing again. There's much less charcoal on the beach than was washing up before, so it looks like a lot of that has moved offshore and hopefully away from the beach there. Fishing there was good, with one angler getting a 24-inch halibut on a Lucky Craft in that area, right on the Will Rogers State Beach area right there. So right near where Wiley's once was located. So that is beginning to clean up and clear up. Hopefully we'll get some more reports from Malibu in that area. And then of course up in the Leo Carrillo, El Matador, Point Magoo area, we're looking for some reports there. I'm sure that area continues to be good on calico bass, cabezon, and a variety of perch up there. Up there you can find walleye, barred surf perch, and calico surf perch, among the other perch up there, but those are three of the predominant perch in that area. Should be still good fishing in that northern Malibu area. And then when we make our way down to the South Bay, really from, Santa Monica all the way to Palos Verdes, it's been good perch fishing for walleye and barred surf perch and yellowfin croaker. All of those fish have been smaller, as we talked about before. It looks like a lot of those females have spawned now and are out of the mix. So we're seeing these smaller fish. That's been good. And then the hot spot in the South Bay this week was right around kind of between 8th Street in Hermosa and 12th Street in Hermosa. A traditionally good spot for corvina. Several big corvina caught there. One of the main reasons is that between the jetty at King Harbor and the Hermosa Pier, a tremendous amount of sand accumulates there because the harbor stops the movement of that sand, and in that area it gets a lot of sand crabs over the summer, and particularly now in the spring there's a lot of sand crabs there. So that traditionally is a good spot all summer long, really, obviously beginning now and throughout the summer all the way to about October 1st. A traditionally good corvina spot, and of course a traditionally really good soft shell sand crab spot, especially at high tide underneath the pier. There is a really good spot to get sand crabs. Both there and the Manhattan Beach Pier are excellent sand crab spots at high tide, and particularly in the middle of the night. That's when we used to go a lot to get them, because there's nobody on the beach and it's so calm. All those crabs come up to the surface. So the South Bay didn't make a loud sound this week, but still continues to chug along, and will get much better as this water continues to warm up and the swell diminishes a bit on the west facing beaches. And then we make our way down to Orange County. Huntington Beach once again had, and really all the way through the Newport jetties, had those smaller perch down there. But the big news in Orange County is some of these big yellowfin croaker down there. One angler this week caught a yellowfin croaker over 4 pounds using Carolina rig with just a gulp bait on it. That's a big fish. The state record's around 12 pounds, 10 to 12 pounds. So they get bigger than that. But when you get in the 4-pound range, you're talking about a tremendous fight, and those things hit like a train going by. So that's really exciting. So in Orange County, along that whole stretch, really from Huntington Harbor all the way down to the Newport area, we've had some good perch fishing for smaller perch and a lot of these larger yellowfin croaker. Now with this grunion run coming in and beginning on Monday, certainly look for halibut all of next week to come closer to shore. And one of the main reasons for that is Monday, which is going to be the first, which is Memorial Day, which is going to be the first day of the grunion run, this upcoming grunion run, has a very big tidal change. There's over an 8.5-foot tidal swing from low tide during the morning to high tide at night, which means when we have that big high tide at night, not only will those grunion be coming up on the beach, but their eggs will be hatching also, and all the grunion fry will be making their way down into the water beginning on Monday. You'll see that Monday night and Tuesday night and maybe even into Wednesday night. So next week, during the week, and really into the following weekend, there's going to be some good halibut fishing all along the coast there, because that grunion is really close to shore, and a lot of those baby grunion are making their way into the water. All that fry in the water is really going to turn things on, not only for the halibut, but that's one thing that corvina eat also, and that will bring them very close to shore. So Orange County has remained good, and another thing about Orange County is the number of sand crabs down there. both around the jetties. And remember, when you're down around the Newport jetties and you're looking for sand crabs, they often accumulate right in the corners of each one of those jetties. Adjacent to each side of the jetty, soft sand accumulates there, and you'll find a lot of sand crabs there. What else will be there? Corbina at high tide will feed in those little areas right where the rocks of the jetty meet sand. Fish right on all those corners. If you put them all together, there's about 12 of them. Some fantastic surf fishing right along that area. And then as we make our way down to San Diego, really from Oceanside all the way to the Silver Strand, once again, a lot of these smaller perch in that area, and a few yellowfin croaker and quite a few walleye surf perch all have been in that area in there. The bigger news is that up in Carlsbad, just south of town, and I mean just south of town there, an angler using a fly this week caught a 30-inch striper. So those stripers, once again, they are all the way from the Mexican border to the Oregon border. They're all along the coast of California. The question is what are they eating and when are they going to be feeding? There's going to be a time where there's going to be more caught in the surf, but right now we're getting 1 and 2 every week down in this southern area. Of course, they get more than that up north, but a few down in the southern area, but that will continue to be good, and they'll become more and more along the beach over the summer here as the water warms up and their food comes closer to shore. And especially when their food begins to get cut off, there's not as many grunion in the grunion run, there's not as many sand crabs as we get into August. Those stripers should be really, really hungry for sure. So that was a really good sign. And then another one was a couple of nice halibut, one 24 and one 26-inch legal halibut were caught by the Ponto jetty. And those were caught on a 78 SP minnow lucky crab. And I want to remind everybody that early in the season here for the grunion, often the grunion are smaller than they are later in the season. So what will happen is the halibut and the sea bass, of course, they will concentrate on some of the smaller fish rather than the bigger ones. So rather than a 110, you might use a 78 millimeter or a smaller, in other words, hard bait in the surf, whether it's a Lucky Craft or a Battle Star or any one of the many Rapalas, all of the different ones. Look for maybe a smaller, about a 3-inch size to use now, and then work to a bigger size as the summer goes on. And then the last thing in San Diego, of course, is the bays continue to kick out fish, and I think the biggest surprise is how many corvinas are being caught off of the rocks in both the Mission Bay Harbor, both on the inside and the outside of that harbor, and on San Diego Bay and the inside and the outside of San Diego Bay. It's phenomenal how many are there. Nobody's targeting them, and the anglers who are being successful, they're using things like Lucky Crafts, Battle Stars, they're using like chartreuse swim baits, and they're fishing at night. That's really been the secret on those corvina. The bigger corvina, they're much more hungry, they're much more active at night, and anglers who are catching the big ones that are 30+ inches are getting them after dark. So that's our fish report for this week. In the meantime, don't forget to sign up for my newsletter. It's on the front page of fishthesurf.com. You'll get an email once a month with all the details about surf fishing, tips, fishing report, all kinds of information you need to be successful down on the beach. Don't forget that the next upcoming grunion run is Monday, Memorial Day, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Begin about 9:30 to 10 o'clock at night. So that's the time to get down there to see them. Remember, this is an observation only period, which means you can't even touch them. So do not collect them. Do not even go to the water and touch them. If Fish and Game sees you there, they'll write you tickets. So be very, very careful about that. We cannot take any into possession until after July, when we have our very first run in the month of July. And then last but not least, if you need any surffish tackle whatsoever, I've got a rod sale going on this weekend with Okuma rods and reels. Check out surffishtackle.com. So thank you everybody for watching, and until next week when I see you right here, good luck on the beach.